Hello, nice to see you again. Today I will show you how to knit this coaster on the Passap. First, make sure the racking handle is in its lowest position. Raise 15 needles on the front bed of the machine. Place the edge springs on the last needles and make sure the latches are closed. Then raise 15 needles on the back bed. You have to observe the needle rule. The leftmost working needle must be on the front bed and the rightmost working needle must be on the back bed of the machine. Now you can see it up close. Insert the orange strippers and take the yarn. For this project I will use black and white yarn. The black yarn will be the first color and the white yarn will be the second. I will start knitting with the black yarn. Set the front lock to N and the stitch size to 2.5. Set the back lock the same way, the lever to N and the stitch size to 2.5. Now knit one row. It should look like this. Set the front lock to CX and increase the stitch size to 3.5. Set the back lock the same way, CX and stitch size 3.5. Now knit 2 rows. On the front lock, move the lever to N and increase the stitch size to 4.5. Set the same settings on the back lock. Knit 1 row to finish the cast on, then knit 10 more rows without changing the settings. Now you can clear the row counter. Rotate the racking handle anti-clockwise to its upper position. The needles must be opposite to each other. Remove the edge springs, take the double-eye bodkin tool and transfer all the stitches from the back bed to the needles on the front bed. Each needle must have 2 stitches attached to its hook. Don't pull the stitches behind the latches. By the way, if you have an idea for a video, you can share it in the comment section below. Place the edge springs on the last needles and make sure the latches are closed. Make sure to put all the needles on the back bed out of working position. Lower the front bed and attach a weight to the knitting. Rotate the racking handle clockwise to its lowest position. Remove the orange strippers and insert the black ones. The settings on the front lock must remain the same. Set the back lock to GX, we will use only the front bed to knit the coaster. Now knit 10 rows. Lower the front bed and attach the weight higher on the knitting. Clear the row counter, set the front lock to BX and increase the stitch size to 5.5. The settings on the back lock must remain the same. Now it's time to change the yarn. Raise pushers under all working needles on the front bed. Now knit 2 rows. Put the leftmost pusher in resting position and knit 2 rows. Put the next pusher on the left in resting position and knit 2 rows. Repeat these steps until you have 11 pushers in resting position and 4 pushers in working position. Always move the log slowly and carefully when knitting with pushers. The first wedge is ready, you can clear the row counter. Lower the front bed and attach the weight higher on the knitting. Move the log to the right and change the yarn. Raise all the pushers on the front bed. Now knit 2 rows. Put the leftmost pusher into resting position and knit 2 rows. Then put the second pusher into resting position and knit 2 rows. Continue until there are 11 pushers in resting position and 4 pushers in working position. To make the coaster you have to knit 6 wedges in total. Always move the log slowly and carefully when knitting with pushers. Lower the front bed and attach the weight higher on the knitting. The weight must be attached to the right side of the knitting. Clear the row counter, change the yarn again and continue until you make all 6 wedges. When you knit the last wedge, clear the row counter and change the yarn. On the front bed, move the NX lever to end, the other settings must remain the same. Remove all the pushers on the front bed. Knit 30 rows using these settings. Move the log to the right and push the eyelet down so the log can't take it. Remove the weight, pull the knitting slightly with your hand and move the log to the left. The knitting will fall from the machine. This is the coaster right after you take it from the machine. First you have to cut and hide the yarn tails. Tie a knot with the tails and weave the ends in between the stitches. When you change the yarn, try to leave long tails so that you can easily hide them later. If you can't tie the tails together, you can press the coaster with an iron and use your sewing machine to make a seam close to the edge. The edge will curl inward and the seam will be invisible. Now you have to sew both ends using the Kitchener stitch. I will sew the sides using the thread tail from the first wedge. Cut the other tails so they don't get in the way while sewing. Iron the coaster so that you can sew it more easily. I still don't know how to do the Kitchener stitch, but I will show you some of the footage just to see how I sewed my coaster. You can learn how to make this seam from the internet. If I find out how to make it correctly, I will make a video explaining it my way. In the end, the seam has to be invisible. When you sew the sides, you have to close the hole in the middle. So in the end it will look like this. Now you have to remove the waste yarn. You can unravel it or remove it using scissors. And this is the final result. I will be happy to see yours on my Facebook page. Thank you for staying with me. Have a nice day and see you in my next video.